Hi everyone, it's Dr. Arame and Verizade here, and I'm so excited that you're getting ready to watch these two videos about the history of COTAD as well as some of the logistics of being a COTAD chapter. These videos are not only for new chapters that are just getting started, but also existing chapters that are transitioning into new leadership. So this is applicable to anybody really learning about the history of COTAD and really learning about some of the logistics that you need to have access to. Enjoy, and I cannot wait for us to have either our one-on-one initial call or our transition call. I am so excited to welcome you all as a new COTAD chapter. Wonderful job. One of the hardest parts is just getting established. So I just want to congratulate you all for becoming an official COTAD chapter at your program. One of the things that I love to share is a little bit of the history of COTAD. And normally we talk about this during the one-on-one, but I think perhaps you watching this prior to the one-on-one will help you give you a little context about, how you are creating your goals and moving forward in the priorities for your chapter. So I also think that it's really important to know the history, the vision, the mission of this organization so that you know what you're aligned in and what you're part of. And if the mission and vision and the history is what you want to be, it's what you want to be a part of, basically, right? So COTAD, we've been rooted and we've been grounded in this work for almost a decade. It's very exciting to say that we weren't reactionary and started an organization June 2020 when this equity, diversity, inclusion discussion became a thing and very trendy. We've been very much focused on this work since around 2013. And so I should say that I am the chair of COTAD. I am one of the founders of COTAD. I am the COTAD chapter coordinator, and I also established the Ignite series. In between time, in the meantime, I have a full-time job. I am the director of admissions at USC and associate professor. So I'm located in Los Angeles. And I think people oftentimes think COTAD is like a full-time job, which I believe it has become. So a little bit about COTAD is that we were a group of emerging leaders, and some of you, the faculty liaisons, may be familiar with the Emerging Leader program, which was part of AOTA, and that program connected a few leaders from around the country, and they connected you with an AOTA leader for a year, and you would have a project, and that was the mentorship program. And around 2013, a group of us, of our cohort, were sitting down and discussing the Centennial Vision. Again, the faculty liaisons may be familiar with the Centennial Vision, but you all may be familiar with Vision 2025. But our Centennial Vision talked a lot about being evidence-based, being science-driven, a lot of different pieces to the vision that we should be accomplished by our centennial. 2017 was our centennial. So they wanted all this to happen by 2017. And one of the pieces was to be a diverse workforce that met society's occupational needs. And we really questioned that. We really questioned, okay, it's 2013, 2012, I believe. How are we going to be getting to that by 2017? I mean, we're barely there in 2021. So Dr. Amy Lamb, who was the president of AOTA at the time, really challenged us. And she said, well, why don't you all do a presentation at the next conference? And I sometimes say, she told the wrong group of people, but she surely told the right group of people, because we surely did do a presentation at the next conference in 2014. And it's interesting because there are, I think people think that there's a COTAD office like in LA, and we're all working together 24/7, but we are all a group of leaders and founders of COTAD are all across this country, and we've been building COTAD via Zoom remotely, consistently, and passionately for, like I said, since 2013, 2012, 2014. So we've been very, like I said, rooted in this work, and I want to be very clear, although we are a grassroots organization and now a nonprofit organization since 2019, we are beyond DEI. We're not an organization that's just about DEI. So I want to be clear that we are about DEI, anti-racism, anti-oppression, and justice. And we are about actionable, systemic, and sustainable change. So it's not just having listening sessions and just being performative. We're very much about creating action to have and see change. And so that was exactly what we did for our presentation. The ultimate goal has always been this. It's never been for clout or popularity or anything. It's been to increase a diverse student body so that there be increased representation in the profession, so that we can ultimately decrease health disparities. It's always been about how do we decrease health disparities? If you're familiar with Vision 2025, how do we make sure that we have provide quality of care to all peoples, populations, and communities, right? So we did that presentation about why it's important to have a diverse student workforce and this and that. I mean, student body for a diverse workforce, all of that. And everybody flocked to us at that presentation. And that's before people were using the terms equity and inclusion. It was like diversity. And we knew right then and there, COTAD was developed right there. So as a leader, any gap that you see that needs to be filled, you can be the change that you want to see. Fill that gap. We filled the gap because we said, well, okay, we need to address diversity. And so we couldn't take on diversity because it's such a huge thing, right? So we knew that we need to create structure. So we created pillars. So when COTAD was born, we said, let's create pillars. So one of our pillars was COTAD Ed. And COTAD Ed is how do we support academicians? How do we support faculty in developing curriculum that is rooted in diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, anti-racism, anti-oppression. I'm just going to say DEI to shorten it right now, but I'm meaning beyond. And so people are talking about decolonizing the curriculum a lot now and, all this thing, but we've been about how do we have inclusive pedagogy and curriculum? How do we have accreditation standards that are required in DEI? How do we make sure case studies are diverse, lived experiences are diverse in the classroom, that there's diverse faculty representation. So COTAD Ed is really about supporting and creating a space for academicians and curriculum to be more focused on DEI, okay? And then we had our, what we called Minority Mentorship Program, MMT, and we recently changed it to CMT, COTAD Mentorship Program, because we do not believe in using deficit-based language. So our COTAD mentorship program was created for new grads. We really want to support our new grads and as they get into practice. And we knew that mentorship matters and representation is key. So that's why we created this program. A lot of pre-OT students and current OT students have been finding this program very interesting and have also joined, although it was originally focused and created for new grads. And then we have my baby, the COTAD chapters. About 3 years ago, I had this vision that every school and every OTA program should have this safe space to create culturally responsive practitioners. And so COTAD chapters was born when I was a faculty member at West Coast University, which was the first COTAD chapter, and the second one was Thomas Jefferson. And it was just these two chapters, and now I look up a few years later, we have over 90 chapters across this country, which encourages me, which makes me feel that you all as student leaders are the future. You're mobilizing, you are organizing, and you are empowered. And anytime I'm at a COTAD Ed event, they're like, yeah, we have a chapter. I'm like, yeah. And the students are accomplishing the mission and vision and strategic plans of these programs. So kudos to you all. It makes me so excited to see when a chapter is being developed and moving forward in a very successful way. So I'll talk more about the chapters later, but that was the ultimate goal, is to provide support in place. And then we have our COTAD community, which is one of our newest pillars, which is led by the first COTAD chapter chairs who are now practitioners. So I want you to know that when you graduate, don't think like, oh, that's it. If you're interested in this work, I want you to know that there's a space for you to continue this work in COTAD. Now, I think people oftentimes think COTAD is a student-led organization only, but chapters is just a pillar of our COTAD National, which is our entire national organization, which is why I'm explaining the different pillars, so you know where you are aligned. So when you talk about yourself, you are the program's COTAD chapter, okay? So you're not COTAD at your university, you're not your university's name in COTAD, you are a COTAD chapter. So it differentiates the different work that students are doing within our larger organization. So COTAD community is about how do we provide these DEI and beyond in our communities, right? Because it's about serving our communities, our people, our populations. And I'm so proud to say we normally do these COTAD community challenges during around AOTA conference. And one of them for this year, which is 2021, is really providing these wonderful resources to Breonna Taylor's high school. So it's very exciting community work that we do. I'm very, very excited about how this pillar is really growing. Now we have two new pillars that are really developing, which is COTAD Impact. Oftentimes, you know how to do a lit review, you know how to get evidence and evidence base and do APA format, right? But oftentimes there's not diversity-driven data. And so what COTAD wants to do is create those outcome measures to show the impact that we've made in the work throughout our profession when it comes to DEI, anti-oppression, etc. So COTAD Impact is really looking at publications, presentations, outcome measures for this work. And then we have our COTAD State, which is really looking at how do we increase these conversations across the country. You know, when this pillar was initially thought of, it was obviously prior to June 2020, before people were really talking about DEI across the board. And we knew that we had a big presence at AOTA, COTAD does. You know, we have our COTAD annual breakfast, we have our booth, we have presentations, COTAD Chapter of the Year Awards, which I'll talk about in a bit. But we have so many different things, and we were like, okay, well, we can't just have these conversations one time a year. So we want to increase the visibility throughout state conferences, hence COTAD State. What's happening now is that everybody's creating a DEI committee and they're having these conversations and people are doing conferences around them, which is great. But when the hype dies down, are we going to continue having these conversations? So COTAD State is to ensure that these dialogues and these changes are happening across the state throughout the year numerous times. Okay, so that's COTAD State. And so we have tons of pillars that we're growing. Actually, we're in the middle of restructuring because we can have pillars for days. So I'm not going to go through all of these pillars, but these are their main pillars. And throughout our organization, we are rooted in advocacy. That is what we believe in. We were in the conversation with entry-level OTD and how that impacts diversity. We were in the conversation recently working with legislation to increase funding and diversity within allied health professions, which that was a very successful project that we worked on. And we were also in the conversation with Vision 2025. When it was created, there was nothing in there really about diversity or inclusivity. And we said, wait a minute, we really need to make sure that we have this in here and that it's very clear. And so they redid it. And then that is when they created the pillar of inclusivity. So advocacy works, y'all. So I just wanted you to know a little bit about the history of COTAD and what you're a part of, what you're aligned in, and that you are a COTAD chapter, and that you could lean on any one of us to support you. One of the things is that we want you to continue doing this work. We want to build a network of like-minded individuals. So that's a little bit about our history. I want to kind of go in specifically to COTAD chapters and let you know a little bit about what we represent and how we want to support you to be successful. Now, the chapters is powerful. You have expanded the role of chapters. The chapters are doing some marvelous work, have a wonderful programs and events and activities and leaders and thoughts. And so one of the things we also want to do is support you personally and professionally. So anything that you're interested in doing, the COTAD way is if you're interested, then you got to do it. So, you know, we have taken our students to conferences. The dues that you all are paying go right back into supporting you. So the last conference, obviously, we were in person in 2019, but I worked with chapter chairs to develop a presentation. It got accepted. Now they can say, we've been to a conference. We have confidence in knowing how to present. We have met other chapter chairs from across the country. You have a network of individuals who are like-minded. I wish I had a COTAD chapters when I graduated 14 years ago. So because it would have created this network of individuals that I knew were aligned in the work and the mission and passion that I had, right? So they went to conference, and that's one of the things that we support you in. We also support you in publications. We have a group of students who just recently submitted to OT practice. We support them in any research or activities when they want to do. So if there's anything professionally that you want to work on as far as development, we're here to support you. That's a benefit of being part of a COTAD chapter. We also feature you on our COTAD newsletter, which is called COTAD Curious. If you want to be featured, we also advocate for you to be in OT Practice, OT Pulse, your state newsletter, your school newsletter, anything that you want to do, you can, and we'll support you. And which is why we want to teach you how to gather your outcome measures so that you have something to be able to present. Also, I want you to know that the difference between my role and your faculty liaison, I'm by no means, no way here to micromanage you. This is a student-led organization. I want to be very clear. And so my job is to connect you with all of the COTAD chapter chairs and leaders from across this country, connect you to the work that COTAD National has been doing, give you certain opportunities to be able to thrive in and information and updates, and connect you to a lot of the logistics that we'll talk about. And so the faculty liaison is an additional resource for you. I am not on your campus. I do not know the logistics of your program, red tape, green tape, yellow tape, any other tape. And if you need additional support and resources, that is another level of just support, like I said, to make sure that you have the tools to be successful, to move your program agendas forward. Now, you as peers, you did the needs assessment, you know what your peers are wanting, you know your community, and so you know how to prioritize your goals. So utilize your resources that you have, myself, your faculty liaison, or multiple liaisons, to be able to access the things that you need and get the answers or support with whatever you need. Okay, so that's a little bit of the difference between my role and your faculty liaison. One of the other things I want to share with you is the COTAD Chapter of the Year Award. Another incentive for being a COTAD chapter, we normally do this big thing at AOTA conference during our annual breakfast, and the last two, 2020 and this 2021, have been remote, but best believe we made sure to give props to our COTAD chapters. Our first one was Wash U, our second one was Northern Arizona University, and we're getting ready to do our third one this year in 2021. And it's really cool. Not only is it bragging rights to say you're a COTAD chapter of the year, we have you all listed on our website, big picture. We send a big plaque to your school. We've also recently been collaborating with NBCOT. Not only are we working with NBCOT to develop and work on the culturally responsive questions on their tests, but we also ask them to support our students. So, they will be providing free study kits for every single member of the COTAD Chapter of the Year, one raffled off free actual NBCOT paid test for the Chapter of the Year, as well as some scholarship funding money. So there is more incentive for becoming the COTAD Chapter of the Year. Nominations normally start in March, and we announce like I said, the winner around April. So that is another cool thing about being a COTAD chapter. So those are some of the things I want to share with you. Welcome again. We'll be talking more in person during the 101. I just want you to get a little bit of history about COTAD, a little bit of understanding of how the organization is structured, and a little bit more details about some of the benefits of becoming a COTAD chapter. Thank you again. I'll talk with you all very soon. Again, welcome to the family, and we'll go from there. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.